Director John Reinhardt is one of the more intriguing, if obscure, figures of the classic Hollywood era. He was born into a privileged childhood in Vienna in 1901, son of celebrated composer Heinrich Reinhardt. After the First World War, he made his way to California, where he began working in movies as a writer and actor. The key to Reinhardt's gainful employment was that he was multilingual. In the early 30s, he worked steadily directing foreign language versions of Hollywood films. This is a virtually forgotten aspect of Hollywood history. Studios didn't dub films for foreign language markets, both here and abroad. They made the films in those languages with actors speaking in their native tongues. Reinhardt's first film as a director was the 1933 Fox Spanish language film Yo Tuyela, with Spanish star Rosita Moreno, the first of many films they'd make together. In 1935, he directed Moreno in two films with legendary Argentine tango singer Carlos Gardel. Reinhardt would spend most of the 30s directing films in two versions, such as the seafaring adventure Captain Calamity, made with English-speaking actors, and its Spanish-language twin, El Capitán Tormenta, made with an entirely different Spanish-speaking cast. During this extended period, Reinhardt was a citizen of the world, bouncing between the United States, Europe, and South America, making films everywhere he went. He was also a theater director and composer. And during World War II, he served as field photographer for the Office of Strategic Services. Returning to Hollywood after the war, Reinhardt rode the noir wave. Those films, The Guilty, High Tide, For You I Die, and Open Secret, along with the terrific 1952 film Chicago Calling, are pretty much all that remains of Reinhardt's work. The dozens of foreign language films he made are tragically a vanished part of Hollywood history. Another obscure legacy is that of writer Raoul Whitfield, who wrote the story upon which High Tide is based. Not much is known about him, although he was one of the most prolific and proficient writers of pulp fiction ever. By all accounts, Whitfield was a handsome and well-heeled gent who could lash out a story with minimal rewriting. In the late 20s, he became tight with Dashiell Hammett, whose style was an immediate and obvious influence. Whitfield left behind more than 300 stories and a handful of novels, but very few clues about his personal life, except that Whitfield's first wife, Prudence Smith, had a long-running affair with Hammett. Whitfield left her for prominent New York socialite Emily Vanderbilt, which made him a wealthy man. They moved to a cattle ranch in New Mexico in the late 30s, but Vanderbilt shot herself when Whitfield went back to work in Hollywood. A third wife, Lois Bell, also committed suicide, throwing herself down a flight of stairs. Whitfield burned through the fortune he inherited from Vanderbilt and died penniless of tuberculosis in 1945. In 1947, it certainly looked like High Tide would be the last muffled hurrah for Lee Tracy. His charming cockiness had hardened into what you saw in today's film, a sort of caustic bitterness. And this would be the last feature Tracy made for 17 years, when he returned to the big screen in 1964 with an Oscar-nominated performance in The Best Man, portraying the President of the United States, a farcical notion 30 years earlier when his drunken misadventures almost caused an international incident. It was a triumphant capper to Tracy's long career. I now direct you to the Noir Alley Facebook page and Twitter feed, where you can note that I almost overlooked the appearance in today's film of Francis Ford, John Ford's older brother, playing the role of Pop Garrow. There are a few other familiar faces left unsighted, so I'm counting on you loyal noiristas to fill in the gaps. Then join me back here next week for an all-time classic directed by a slightly more well-known Austrian. I'll be showing Fritz Lang's 1945 masterpiece, Scarlet Street, which has every single thing a purist wants in a film noir. If you haven't seen it, you're in for a great many treats. Until next time, see you in the shadows.